Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for all being here tonight. This is the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors regular business meeting being held on January 22, 2024 at 6 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and presentation of colors by the Navy Junior Reserve's Officer Training Corps, followed by a moment of silence. Present colors. I pledge allegiance to you.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving in the United States Armed Forces, both past and present, the elected leaders for the state of Pennsylvania, and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for in our community. Color guard, post colors. Please be seated. Okay. Agenda item 3, executive session announcement. The executive session, the Board of School Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas: legal, personnel, or real estate matters on January 22, 2024. Before I move on to the next agenda item, I did just want to acknowledge that we have 2 board members, or 3 board members who are on Zoom this evening. Mr. Harmanos is on Zoom currently, but will be joining us in person soon. And Mrs. Chevelle Fuller and Mr. Chester are both on Zoom. Agenda item 4, the appointment of board members to standing committees and school board representatives. Okay. The following appointments for school board members to standing committees and school board representatives have been made. For Curriculum and Special Education Committee, Mrs. Sabo as chair, Dr. Rattoli as vice chair, Mrs. Chevelle Fuller and Mr. Chester. For Finance, Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mr. Harmanos chair, Dr. Melnizak vice chair, Mr. Doherty and Mrs. Munson members. Legislative and Policy Committee, Mrs. Munson chair, Mrs. Sabo vice chair, Mr. Doherty and Mr. Harmanos members. Personnel Committee, Dr. Rattoli chair, Dr. Melnizak vice chair, Mrs. Chevelle Fuller and Mr. Chester members. Our PSBA region representative is Dr. Nicholas Rattoli, Chester County Intermediate Unit Board Committee representative, Mrs. Munson, and Chester County School Board's Legislative Council representative, Dr. Rattoli. Agenda item 5, the superintendent's report. Dr. Stout.
Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. We're going to begin tonight with our Student Council Executive President report. So Josh Zhang, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone in person and on Zoom. Starting off today, highlighting our high school. Since the last board meeting, we have recognized our November and December students of the month, as well as our Integrity Award winners for both months. In December, the high school hosted its first Trade and Technical School Day, while in January, our horticulture program hosted a Green Industry Career Fair. Our DECA and NJROTC students have also found a lot of success at district and regional competitions, with a lot more to look forward to in the months ahead. We also hosted the winter choral and band concerts, while our chamber choir serenaded students and staff in the lead-ups to our winter break. Our girls wrestling team also participated in the historic first event on November 30th and haven't looked back since, with a number of outstanding individuals and team performances. As for boys basketball and girls basketball, they each have hosted their own Norchester Youth Nights, and girls basketball, as well as cheerleading, hosted clinics for our elementary students. Many of our senior athletes participated in signing day and were recognized for their post-secondary choices. We've also had a number of athletes recognized for personal milestones, as well as being named to local, regional, and state teams. These individuals were recognized in recent weekly newsletters. Lastly, over the few months, our entire community has been incredibly generous in supporting a number of different initiatives. The coat drive bin has needed to be emptied many times due to the volume of our donations. The Black Student Union's drive for hair care products supporting students of color in foster care went extremely well, and our Toys for Tots and Giving Tree campaigns prior to the holidays resulted in us being to support 70 high school families prior to the holidays. We want to thank everyone in our community for the support of their students. As for the middle school, we want to congratulate 7th grade students Catherine Zhuang, Jesse Payne, and Charlotte Gerber, along with 8th grade students Austin Bigar, Aditi Patel, Sadie Fisher, Emma Morrow, and Lucas Foster. These Owen J. Roberts Middle School students have had their artworks selected by middle school art teachers Mrs. McGinnis and Mrs. Fake for the PAEA Youth Art Month exhibit. The exhibit will be held online on March 1st to the 31st, 2024, and awarded works will be displayed in the PA State Capitol in March 2024. Congratulations to all of these 7th and 8th grade artists. On Thursday, January 18th, 8th grade student Charan Garamella outlasted 8 other magnificent spellers to claim victory in the Owen J. Roberts Middle School Spelling Bee. It took him 30 rounds of difficult words to do so. Charan received an Amazon gift card and qualified to represent Owen J. Roberts Middle School at the County Bee at CCIU on February 7th. Best of luck to Charan. The Owen J. Roberts Middle School PTA invites everyone to join us at 7 p.m. on January 24th in the middle school auditorium. In recognition of Holocaust Remembrance Day, Holocaust survivor Peter Stern will be joining us to share his life experiences. 8th grade students are in the middle of course selections for the high school, while our current 6th and 7th graders are selecting their electives for the middle school. On January 17th, we held a 6th grade parent orientation in the middle school auditorium. Also, congratulations to the following middle school students who were selected to participate in inter-county band. This is a tremendous honor as students demonstrating a high degree of skill are selected. In 7th grade, Landon Keach, and in 8th grade, Titus Mendenhall, Ben Turley, Diego Roberts, and Claire McAllister. Congratulations to those students. And finally, for our elementary school, December was a fun and festive month on the elementary level. Various events were held that had the holiday spirit on display throughout the district's 5 elementary schools. Families delighted in district-wide orchestra and band evenings, as well as individual choir concerts at each school. Craft nights were also hosted, and theme days, including Pajama Day and Ugly Sweater Contest, filled the calendar. In December, the academic coaches from all 5 elementary schools attended the Learning Forward Annual Conference in Washington, D.C. While there, they gained additional knowledge about professional learning as well, and also presented a session on crafting a comprehensive year-long personalized professional learning plan, just like they did last year in their respective schools. Finally, following a well-deserved break for staff and students, the new year is off to a great start. Students are busy in their classrooms learning and moving towards in their curriculum and studies. Our mid-year blitz occurred last week, where students in all grades were given Ames Web assessments to help teachers see student growth to date and where, when necessary, additional interventions and supports need to be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Each year, the Pennsylvania School Boards Association sets aside a time in January to honor school directors for the time and commitment they bring to leading our schools throughout the year. Earlier this evening, we had the opportunity to welcome our school directors to a celebration for their service to our community. Earlier this week, we shared a video with the directors and their families showing some of our students offering their thanks and appreciation for everything our school board does on behalf of students. So on behalf of the district, our students, our families, and our entire community, thank you, school directors, for all your hard work on behalf of our children. You have our deepest appreciation and respect. As a reminder, the district will be closed on Monday, February 19th in honor of President's Day weekend. I also have some news for our West Vincent families, hot off the press. The power outage that we experienced today that caused us to send students home earlier has been resolved, and we have full power and heat in that building, so school will resume as normal tomorrow. But thank you to our families for being extremely flexible today with an 11:30 dismissal due to that problem. Tonight, the administrative team will be seeking the school board's approval of the school start time and full-day kindergarten agenda items. January 8th at our board working session, the board requested more information in regard to full-day kindergarten. So at this time, I want to turn over to Dr. Kathy Soter, our assistant superintendent, who will provide an update on full-day kindergarten and the questions that the board had.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stout. So we last had our conversation at the working session, and as you heard, I know that you had some additional questions. I'm just going to go through that presentation very quickly, sort of summarize what we talked about that night and get right to your questions. At that time, our elementary principals talked about the important considerations, the curriculum that they could cover during an extended, longer full day for kindergarten. And that included a number of instructional considerations, keeping in mind the diverse learners that we have in kindergarten, the fact that some of our students come really ready to learn, others are still learning their numbers and letter sounds. And we have a much greater need for our special education students. We talked about during that meeting that we have additional students coming from our early intervention program and some of the needs that they have. And we believe that a full day kindergarten program could assist a larger group of students with diverse needs. We also talked about that our neighboring school districts have full day kindergarten. 18 of the 21 school districts in Montgomery County currently have full day kindergarten. We know that a couple more are coming online in the next 2 years. And in Chester County, 8 of our 12 neighbors also have full day kindergarten. We're finding that this is becoming more of a community expectation. And we know that a full day program would alleviate the problem of midday transportation for many of our families. We also talked about the capacity that our schools have, and that in the past, when we would have considered full day kindergarten, we might have needed to find space for an entire grade level, like 6th grade or kindergarten in another building. And we did an extensive review of our current 5 elementary buildings and learned that with some minor construction, we can accommodate all full day kindergarten students in all 5 of our schools. We would not need to relocate an entire grade. We don't want to diminish the fact that this does require movement for some families. And we talked during that working session about the actual capital projects and school capacity considerations that would be necessary in order to accommodate students in all 5 buildings. We also talked about the budget that would be required for this change. And during that time, you asked specifically about paraprofessionals, and this actually occurs sort of both times in our slide presentation. But we did make an adjustment here. So when we talked about this earlier in the month, we talked about the need for additional teachers. We talked about how we would be converting some of our existing CLAMS positions into full day K positions. And you asked about paraprofessionals. Keep in mind that the paraprofessionals that we have and the need for them comes directly from students who are qualifying for additional services in an IEP. So with that in mind, yes, we would probably need to add additional paraprofessionals, and that would likely happen whether we had half-day kinder or full-day kinder, because that would be dependent on the children's needs coming in. Trying to be very careful about the budget, Mrs. Crumrine added an additional funding for paraprofessionals. You can see that up there at a net of 3.6 FTE. So you will notice that there is an increase there for the salaries and benefits compared to what we had shared earlier in the month. This was included in your backup documents. The building renovations that we discussed, furniture, materials, and technology, those have remained the same. We know that the board had some additional questions, and I did want to share those with you. Specifically, you asked about limitations or challenges that we have currently with our program, and the biggest one is that insufficient time. We recognize that right now our teachers are trying to take a full day's worth of material and have that be in a half-day program. And so we recognize that a full-day program would be beneficial for our students if for no other reason to give them the gift of time during the school day. We know that midday transportation is a challenge for many working parents. We talked about that misalignment with our current pre-K counts students who come to us with a full day pre-K program and then come to a half-day kindergarten program. We also discussed that the cost of tuition for full-day programs at charter schools is a burden that the district currently bears. You asked about benefits of the pilot program that we did earlier. We talked about the alignment for scheduling for our working families, increased time for academic and social skills for our students. We recognized an increased attendance rate when we had both that full day and that half day program. Our first grade teachers made note of better fine motor skills. Students had more time during their kindergarten year to be doing those fine motor activities, cutting and writing. They had better writing skills come grade 1. And our kindergarten teachers recognized that having that additional time gave time for quality relationships among students and teachers during that kindergarten year. The board also asked about, you can go to the next slide, Dr. Cicito, thank you, a potential schedule. And of course, we would want to work with our kindergarten teachers to fully develop a plan for a kindergarten schedule that would be all day. But we wanted to offer the kinds of things that families and children would be experiencing in that program. And you can see that this would include that morning meeting time, similar to what the children have now, a language arts block, opportunities for physical activity, math and morning tier time. Similarly, in the afternoon, they would have lunch, they would have recess, they would have physical activities in the afternoon. The option for a science or a social studies lesson, which right now in our half-day program is extremely limited. More time for fine motor. They would have a special area class and that end of the day opportunity to wrap up for the day. And lastly, we had a question from the board last time regarding the budget, and it's on the next slide. Thank you. So we parsed out those items that would be added in the 24-25 school year budget, as well as those for the following year. Much of this would include that construction, and the construction that we talked about would be the additional restroom at West Vincent and additional student restroom at French Creek, and the conversion of the commons areas at North Coventry into instructional spaces. So that is work that we would anticipate scheduling for this summer. And in the event that it could not happen this summer, that would be the following summer. So that's why that one-time capital and initial costs, that's the bottom of the slide, that part wouldn't change. It just may be all in the 24 year and or maybe some in the 25 year. One of our board members asked for the cost of midday transportation, and Mrs. Crumrine took a look at that. That is a new figure for you to review, $401,137. That would include transportation to all of our current elementary schools, in addition to 3 others that we would need to transport to within our attendance area. So that's where that number comes from. And down there at the bottom, again, the annual cost, $475,000. That's really your salary and benefits for staff moving forward. and then the capital costs that are listed there at 265.
I just remind the board that there will also be a time for discussion during the motion and voting process, if you didn't want to ask questions.
And we do have two of our elementary principals here if we have questions that you need from them.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Soter. We're moving on to agenda item 6, public comment. There are 2 opportunities for public comment. The first section is for information, proposals and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda that will be voted on tonight. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the item on the agenda for which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. The second section will be at the end of the meeting and is for residents to speak on any item. Also, if you have any questions for the school board, you may email those school board of directors at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net. For anyone who would like to make a comment online, please use the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
Good evening. I emailed you, so I won't repeat all of those points. Hopefully you all read my email. But I will just say a few other points in case, just to refresh your memories, and in case there's a bit of new information here about the school start time change.
I'm sorry.
Cheryl Herzog Warwick. Sorry, I'm notorious for forgetting that. Teens growing brains and bodies need about 9 hours of sleep per night. With the early start times, of course, and the early bus times, of course, that's not possible for most. A lot of people are worried that if teens start later, that they'll just stay up later. Studies show that this is not true, that teens do actually get more sleep because the start times are more in line with their natural circadian rhythm. And so they actually go to bed when they're tired, which is only, like 1.5, 2 hours later than the adult circadian rhythm. So then they get to sleep in later and they do get more sleep, better quality sleep too, which is just as important. Healthy school hours that enable teens to get adequate sleep are a key part of supporting their mental health. When a Wyoming district moved to late start times, car crashes involving 16 to 8-year-old drivers dropped by 70%. Student athletes need even more sleep for recovery than their peers do. With better sleep, reaction times improve and injuries decrease. Research has found many other benefits. Academic performance improved, particularly for at-risk students. Attendance rates rose an average of 4%. Graduation rates increased an average of 9%. And I'll just give you a quote here from Tara Zipperin Snyder, who's the executive director and co-founder of Start School Later Incorporated. She said, "Our hope is that schools establish hours that allow for healthy sleep and that they value sleep-friendly schedules as a non-negotiable requirement, as fundamental as providing students with clean air and water." End of quote. Fundamental for their health and well-being for a whole cohort are all of our middle school and high school students, or the majority of them anyway, a whole cohort of people that O&J Roberts serves. Please vote yes on the recommendation by Dr. Staub for changing school start times. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marie Haley from East Vincent Township and would like to discuss the school start time agenda item. Student jobs will absolutely be negatively impacted. While I agree some employers will adjust student shifts, they will not adjust their closing time. This means lost income for students who are saving for a myriad of reasons, whether that just be for some spending money or for college, or to financially contribute at home. The last comprehensive study by the Transportation Department in the fall of 2019 indicated that we would need 19 to 22 buses to accommodate an 8 a.m. start for the middle and high school. But the latest numbers from January 2024 indicate we only need 5 to 7. Where did the other 14 to 15 go? Why do we no longer need them? No other school will adjust their game or event time just because we ask them to. Looking ahead to the fall 2024 athletic schedule, there are at least 13 away games, starting as early as 3:45 on school days. Yes, this is a future schedule and things can change, so let's take a look at the past. On Monday, September 18th, 2023, Phoenixville hosted our girls soccer team for a 3:45 game. As noted on various presentations, Phoenixville's current dismissal time is 2:55, 10 minutes after the dismissal time in this proposal. If Phoenixville won't change a game time for their own home event, why do we think they or anyone else would change a game for us? The late start proposal was posted across social media, including the district's Instagram page. In those comments, the students brought up multiple times another matter of concern: moldy school lunches. Students who want late start can work with their counselor to get AM privilege and start their school day with second period. Students who need their school lunch have no real workaround. They either eat what's available or they don't eat at all. I urge the school board to vote no change on the school start time agenda item. I also urge the school board to direct the administration to focus on this moldy school lunch issue and any other issues the student body brings forward before revisiting the school start time discussion. And that when it is revisited, the school start time discussion must also include new survey results. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Evans. I live in French Creek and I'm the mother of a fifth grader. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. I just wanted
What
to,
agenda item?
oh, this is on school start time. Sorry, should have said that. I just wanted to say thank you, regardless of how the vote goes later today. I, along with my friend Cheryl, have been advocating for this to change the school start times for 5 years now, Cheryl for even longer. And I was there for the rollout of the second survey, for the work groups that we had, for the community meetings we held. And at some point I realized that the former administration was putting us through the paces. They weren't taking it seriously. I think they were trying to appease people, but it became clear they never had any intention on moving forward with this. And I honestly, when Dr. Stout started this up again after COVID, I was skeptical and I expected to be told that we're going to take the temperature again, that we're going to go through these studies, that we're going to take another 5 years before we're ready to move forward with this. And instead, here we are. And he's taken into consideration all the past work that has been done. Again, this is just speculation, but I would guess that part of the reason it took so much more money and so many more buses for the last administration's plan was because they weren't serious about trying to find ways to move forward. I think that in this case, the board and the administration has looked at the challenges that are involved with this move and seen them as challenges to be overcome, problems to be solved, rather than excuses for not doing anything. And for that, I am very appreciative. And again, like I said, regardless of how the vote comes out, I'm just grateful for finding a way to move us forward on this and for putting in a serious effort to get us here. So I appreciate that and thank you.
Hello. Tasha Morris, 14.5 school start times, South Coventry Township. So just a few things to say. I know I gave you a couple emails to look over. Just wanted to encourage you to consider to delay the school start times because I feel like there's not enough work that's been done to kind of solve a lot of problems that the community has. First of all, I don't think there was an updated survey that was sent out. I think there was one maybe a few years ago, before my sons were even in the district. I have two very young sons, you know that, and I work full time. I think parents that have regular business hour jobs, like me and my husband, it's a major barrier for us because right now the bus comes and we have minutes where we have to leave for work. So if the bus was delayed a little bit more, that would cause us to be late for work. I think, it can be done, but I think, you need to come up with some solutions for the community before, a vote takes place or before you approve this. For me personally, in addition to needing the aftercare that I have now, I would need morning childcare before. So I did figure out kind of what it would cost for me to have that for myself. And it would be $1,872 for me to have before care. And then I would also need a bus to stop at the daycare where my youngest son is. He's 3. So I would need to request the bus to make an additional stop in Elverson and also have to pay almost $2,000 more for childcare. I think you could identify families in the community that would be affected by this and offer, some solutions. I did send you guys some resources to look into too, like the Hop Skip Drive, which is an innovative sort of resource that a lot of other school districts are using. And it could decrease bus costs too. You might not need to use as many buses as you do, but I think it's really something you need to look into. So again, I think it's not time for this and just more needs to be done to assist the community with this sort of transition. Thank you.
Hello. Very good. I can wait till we go sit. Okay. Deborah Harvey, East Coventry. I have a senior and a 10th grader, and I have a 9th grader that's not in the district. I'm against the school start times. I just wanted to comment. I appreciate the perspective of an elementary school parent and that not realizing kind of the totality of what goes on high school, goes on in middle school, and some of the challenges that we're facing there. My concern is the overall cost of what it's going to be with busing. And I feel like we're not spending our funding appropriately, that some of that funding needs to go towards better bathroom monitoring, security in the schools, things like that. It would be nice if my kids could go to the bathroom and feel safe doing that in school. Instead, they hold it till they get home. That's kind of not okay. So just other things. I think security is a big problem. I think we should put some resources towards that. The IEP program with kids with behavior versus educational IEPs. Do we have enough staff that's supporting them so that the IEP children are actually learning? Or are we just pushing them through the system? Because quite frankly, that's why my 9-year-old is not in the district anymore. So just some things I think we're misplacing spending, and I'd like to see us use our money a little more wisely.
Kevin Burbosh, North Coventry. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the start times. I'm against that and would hope that the board would vote against starting and adjusting the start times. And my rationale behind that is the impact on the community, and really need to look at the overall impact on everybody from a start time. Multiple children, it impacts, some of the older children can take care of themselves if they're at a high school level. If you have elementary children, you're looking at a major impact there from a financial perspective, putting them in some type of preschool care, after school care in some cases as well. that overall impact on the community needs to be looked at. And yeah, I agree that getting enough sleep is appropriate for children and parents. That's the job of the parent to really stay on top of their children, make sure that they get the sleep they need. I think the school's responsibility is keeping the kids safe and educating. And I think that's where the line should end. The early start time, you know, if you push the time ahead, children are going to stay up later. You know, I heard the study saying that, you know, children are going to go to sleep. You know, I find on the weekends, my children stay up later because they don't have to go to school. So if the parents are not on top of their children, you're going to run into the same situation where they're not getting enough sleep. So I think this is going to cause a bigger downstream effect on the whole community and impact a lot of people financially. It's going to put a lot of stress on families and tell you the truth, and putting a lot of financial stress on a lot of families in a very tumultuous time from a financial perspective. And I would hope that that everybody on the board would take that into consideration. Thank you.
Patricia Drozdowski, East Coventry, and school start times. I do appreciate very much that the school board and administration is trying to do something to better the well-being of our students. I would just ask that we maybe take a little bit more consideration at kids at the elementary age. Some of the things, you know, that I have thought of have been discussed, such as how it will impact our families financially. If you have a child that is in aftercare, you might have to now enroll them in a before care. So now that's another thing that we have to budget for. And I also want to point out that it's not even financial, it's also mental for these younger kids, where you're now potentially being in a before care, then you're in school, and then you're in aftercare. It's a little bit of a disruptive day. And I think that absolutely has an impact on young elementary kids. Of even though you might be in the building for roughly the same amount of time, it's not just school. It's sort of divided up, and it makes the day seem really, really long, and they are exhausted. So I just want to hope and ask that the board do consider not just the well-being of our older students, which I do appreciate, but we consider the entirety of the family for financial aspect and a mental health aspect for our much younger students. I think that they are maybe being forgot about a little bit. And I just hope that we at least consider that, and at best, maybe just table this and offer up some different options to all cross the finish line together as a team. And I would just like to end this on a positive. I came here from Philadelphia, and I came all the way from Kensington because I watched school board meeting after school board meeting in a bunch of different areas. What I will say is the administration, top to bottom, teacher to principal to school board, it has always seemed to me that it was cohesive with the community, that even when it was a little bit tricky with COVID, it never seemed us versus them. And what I will say is, watching all the different school districts, some of them, it became very clear that it was us versus them. And what I will say for O&J, never felt that way to me. And maybe just consider that in our vote, is that we should do this more as a team and consider other options before we shut out a big portion of our community and put a strain on them that we might not be ready to hold. And that's all I ask. Thank you so much.
Online, please.
Aaron, if you can unmute and state your full name and township of residence. Aaron, if you can unmute and state your full name and township of residence.
Hello, did that work?
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. Couldn't figure it out after all this time. I'm Erin Marcellus. I'm from North Coventry. I would like to speak on the school start time and ask that you vote no tonight, simply because there are too many unanswered questions still at this point. Two of them came directly from board members. The first one, I believe, was Mr. Chester, but I'm not positive. I know it was a man who requested a new survey be done. Our last survey was 2019, which was 5 years ago. So why we would just be ignoring that request is very confusing to me. And then I know April Sabo asked if ACP was at capacity, how we would support families with morning care. I don't believe we've gotten an answer to that. We just got directed to the Q&A, which really doesn't provide answers to actual families who are going to be experiencing this. Those two things alone are huge. So I'm asking you to vote no tonight. We are not ready for this. The community is not ready for this. Saying no tonight doesn't mean it's dead in the water. It means you're saying not now. So please vote responsibly for your community. Thank you.
I wrote you guys, Heather McCrary, East Coventry, late start agenda item. I wrote you guys, I spoke before, I've watched this for 10 years now, right? So I want to tell you guys something really quick that happened to me today. It was good and it was sad. You know, I coached the mock trial team for the high school. This is like year number 6. And what really made my heart proud was my 24-year-old daughter, 2017 grad, has come back and really, she's been helping, and she's really, the kids really like that when other young people come back. Do you know what made me sad? When I picked her up from the train this morning, and she's like, why hasn't that passed yet? Number one. And number two, her telling me that, you know, Mom, we've been looking at houses, and, you know, we're looking at Radnor and Conestoga because they are ranked higher than Owen J. Roberts. And where is even Owen J. Roberts, right? This is the thing that people out there that have young kids that think and they don't look ahead. The thing with the late start is it was something for the older kids, and it was better for them because they actually can get more rest. There's bullying that stops. There's other things that can be done. The academic benefit is tremendous, as well as the athletic. There's a bill that's coming out around 8:15, right, that says that's the time to start. Questions are, what are you going to do if that bill comes out, right? But the important thing now is, if you guys aren't going to pass the late start, right, and there's some things that could be handled, I spoke about suggestions for before and after care, get volunteers to help to start it to get going. But the other piece of it is, if you're not going to do that, then please change something about the academics in the high school, right? We're still on a 5-day rotation. We are still requiring kids to take excess health and PE credits, right? You can see how if you drop down those classes now, you could ease their load if you're not going to pass the late start, and then they wouldn't have to take so many classes. More of them could take senior privilege in the morning or in the evening. So if you're not going to pass it, I really encourage you guys to try to do some other things, because nothing has changed in the academics in this high school now for decades, right? Nothing. The only thing that's changed is dropping the highest math class that used to be taught here. That is now off the rotation. I think you guys have a big vote. Think about it. Please do the right thing for the kids.
My name is Taylor Ott, North Coventry. I have 5 kids. 3 of them are in elementary right now, and then 2 of them are younger than that. But I want to talk about both start time and full day, but I'll keep it short, full day kindergarten. So for the start time, I disagree with starting it later, only because I don't see 20 extra minutes in the morning benefiting more than taking away 20 extra minutes. At the end of the day, my oldest, it's always taken her a long time to do her homework. It's not uncommon for her to take an hour and a half to do her homework, which is the exact amount of time we have. I pick her up at the end of the day. We have about an hour and a half at home. Sometimes we have to push dinner because it does take her an hour and a half to do her homework. But if you cut that and she comes home at 4 o'clock, she will have to stop her homework. I don't know when she'd eat dinner. It would put her in a difficult position and affect her life more, which would then push her bedtime later. And I just personally, for my child, don't see the positives. And like I said, I don't see 20 extra minutes in the morning being better, because if I let my kids have 20 more minutes of sleep, if they didn't go to bed at a good time, they're still tired, 20 minutes of extra sleep. If they did go to bed at a good time, 20 minutes doesn't really matter in the morning. They're well rested either way. And then for the full day, I don't agree with full day kindergarten only because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but it just, it got kind of thrown. I mean, since I have 5 kids, it's hard for me to read all the emails, but kind of got thrown at me. It was like in the school start time email. So I didn't really get enough time to really think about it. I don't remember a survey come out. I must have missed it if there was, but about full day kindergarten, it just kind of seems like here we are. And there's so many questions that I don't have answered, like appointments during the day with kids doing half day kindergarten is easier. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I don't know the difficulties, but I know if my husband did everything, it would be completely different. But discipline in school, if my 5-year-old son who doesn't like to eat any food has to eat lunch at school, what are you going to tell him when at home he's throwing a fit because he doesn't want to eat pizza or chicken nuggets? Like, he just genuinely doesn't want to eat food. What are you going to tell him? Like, who's going to discipline him, or who's going to tell him to eat food? What are you going to do if he doesn't eat food and he has to stay all day? How are you going to, if you do the late start times, how are you going to do for a kindergartner morning care, full day kindergarten, aftercare? Like, it just doesn't seem like it's as well thought out as it should be, at least as right now. It seems a bit forced and a bit fast. So I hope you guys won't know for both of those. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Oh. Sure.
Hi there, OJR School Board and everybody else. I'm Patty McPhee. I live in North Coventry. I have 2 high school students, an 11th grader and a 12th grader. And I have worked in the district before at North Coventry and East Coventry, and I'm very proud to be here. I love our school district, and I do appreciate all that you guys do. School start times, I've been hearing about them since I moved here, even before I had children. And 5 years ago, there was a survey. Overwhelmingly, I believe, the majority at least, was no. And yet, here we are again talking about it. I understand that our kids need better sleep, but I also see all the great options they have. Hybrid, AM privilege, PM privilege, in order to get the schedule they need. And I'm talking about high school, of course. I do understand the effects it'll have on our elementary age children and families. There's just so many questions, and I have to agree with our last speaker. It feels like it was all just thrown right back at us 2 weeks ago in an email. And it was sort of buried, and the kindergarten was sort of buried as well, the full day. That's going to be a long day for those kindergartners. They're going to be getting off that bus at 4:15 if they don't have to go to aftercare. So I would please request that you take a moment and take a breath on this, and let's do some more research. If you really want to move forward with changing school start times by a not significant amount, really, it does take away from academics in the afternoon when my kid has to leave for a tennis match. I did my own survey online on our Facebook page, and it was 77% against and 21% for changing school start times. Please check it out, OJR Community Facebook page. I would just ask that you take a moment, do a little more research. The amount of money you're spending to change school start times could be better spent implementing your full day kindergarten program or fixing one of the bathrooms out here. Have you used one of the bathrooms? I mean, we need some improvements here. And I feel like you're not getting a ton of gain. Older students have a lot of options. And I would just ask you to take a minute before you push all that through. Thank you.
Jennifer, if you can state your full name and township of residence after you unmute.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bird. I live in South Coventry. I have 3 kids. My oldest is in French Creek. My middle child's about to start in French Creek, and I'd like to speak on the late start time and the full day kindergarten. I'll make it quick with the school start time. my oldest doesn't get home until almost 4 o'clock already, and she's on a strict schedule to ensure that she has her amount of sleep and whatnot. So if we push school start time back, we're not only pushing her bus route later, she won't get home until 5, which means to do her homework, as the one lady just spoke about, the schedules get thrown off. And I'm a stay-at-home mom myself, and but I also help other moms in the community with like childcare and stuff. My whole issue is my daughter started in 2020, and I'm hearing that the survey was sent out in 2019. Why hasn't there been a new survey sent out to include all the new children into the school district?
Jennifer, I'm sorry, you've cut out quite a bit. I don't know if you can.
Hold on, I think. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to.
I think we've lost you, Jennifer, but if you want to try to call back. So back in person.
My name is Victoria. I have 2 children that reside in the district. We live in North Coventry. I vote no.
Victoria, could you please state your full name?
Victoria Whiteside. I vote no for the time change. Just with having both kids in 2nd grade and kindergarten, for us to do the before care, it's $780 a month. If you guys change the times, that's going to be double for 2 children. We work normal 7 to 3 jobs, 8 to 4. We can't change our schedule already. Our kids don't come home until 4 to 4:10. They have sports that start at 6 o'clock. There's no possible way that the kids can go to school, come home, eat dinner, rush, and then be at sports. So I vote no.
Okay. Thank you all very much. We're moving on to agenda item 7, which is board committee reports. 7.1 working session. A working session was held on January 8, 2024 at 6 p.m. The following committees met at this time: Curriculum and Special Education and Legislative and Policy. 7.2, the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Mrs. Munson.
Thank you. The Chester County Intermediate Unit met last Wednesday, January 17th. And the most exciting thing, and I'm really excited to be on the CCIU board for this, is the votes to continue work on a Great Valley location for their Child and Career Development Center. This is something that the CCIU runs out of the like Coatesville and Downingtown area, but up here in northern Chester County, we don't, we have a longer commute for our students that attend these special programs that happen. This is the programs for students with severe disabilities, less severe disabilities like autism, students who have behavioral challenges. Sometimes, students might enter a program at the CCIU for a while and then be re-entered into their school district. And the supports, I think, of the programs at the CCIU programs that will be in this new building in Great Valley will be of great benefit to our district. So there were additional votes on going out to bid for the construction, completing the sale. We had voted previously to purchase a property. It's on Moores Road, right near the Great Valley campus, like the middle school and the high school, if you're familiar with that is. And it's just, for me, it's a very exciting time to see the expansion, because we heard last year from the CCIU that a lot of their programs for TCSH and these special needs students programs are full. So having the additional capacity is really, I think, what the district needs at this point in time, or the county, really. So just wanted everybody to learn what they can about that. It's really exciting. The not so exciting news is that the one of our TCHS and the learning center, which is basically the headquarters for the CCIU, is right by the main line of the railroad, like how we're all named like part of the main line. That's the railroad that runs east-west near Route 30. And a sinkhole has opened on the railroad very close to the building. And we're working on stabilizing that. There's been a few of the classrooms that are no longer in use. And I was very much impressed by the updates that we were getting very quickly from the staff about how closely they've been working with the railroad on identifying and remediating these issues. It did seem to me like they're handling it the best that they can, but just wanted everybody to be aware of that issue. And exciting news for recognition of school board members. The TCHS organizations always do like a student run dinner where you can go enjoy what the culinary school produces and get to see what some of their other programs are doing. And so I'll encourage everybody to look out for the invitations for those school board appreciation dinners. The next meeting is on February 21st at 7 p.m. at the CCIU Learning Center in Downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson, and thank you for continuing to be our representative to intermediate unit. Curriculum and Special Education Committee, Mrs. Sabo.
We met at the last January 8th working session and had a presentation on full day K. Tonight, we will vote on agenda item 14.6 in regards to full day K. Currently, right now, students are taking or have completed mid-year assessments. A brief update or presentation will be available at the March working session with the mid-year achievement data. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabo. 7.4 Finance, Building and Grounds Committee, Mr. Harmonos.
Good evening. We've got a few agenda items today. Agenda items 8.8, 8.9, and 14.15 are related to the preparation and receipt of the audited financial statements and the annual comprehensive financial reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2033. I encourage you all to review them carefully, but the district received a clean, unqualified audit opinion, and there were no findings or reportable conditions. And then also we have agenda item 14.2, which includes a professional service agreement with K&W Engineers for a phase 2 environmental site assessment for the Cadmus Road property, the former Kutz property. We have until the end of February to complete our due diligence for the acquisition of that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmonos. 7.5 Legislative and Policy Committee, Mrs. Munson.
The Legislative and Policy Committee did meet during our January 8th working session, where we discussed the policies for first reading that are on our agenda item 8.11 tonight. So those are the policy 815, acceptable use of internet, computers, and network resources, and policy 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response. Most of these changes are driven by recommendations from PSBA. We also have section 8.12 on tonight's agenda, the 2024 to 2025 school year calendar, as well as there are some policies for second reading on agenda item 14.9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson. 7.6 Personnel Committee, Dr. Rattoli.
No report.
Thank you, Dr. Rattoli. Agenda item 8, may I have a motion to approve recommended routine matters consent items 8.2 through 8.13 as consent items?
So moved.
Mrs. Munson,
Second.
Dr. Rattoli, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 9.1, the acknowledgement of the receipt of donations, contributions, and gifts. This month, the district received a donation from Showstopper Photography and Mr. Chris Murphy for $425 to be divided between all the schools in our district, $50 per elementary school, $75 to the middle school, and $100 to the high school. The high school received a $750 donation from Dallas Fries towards the high school athletic events. East Coventry Elementary received $133.10 from the East Coventry PTO for the kindergarten field trip to Ridge Firehouse. And Sir Jay's donated $50 for vending machine profits. At East Vincent, the East Vincent PTA donated $1,750 towards the field trips for kindergarten, first, and fifth grades. And the East Vincent PTA donated $1,650 for field trips for first, third, and sixth grades. At French Creek Elementary School, French Creek PTA donated $372 for kindergarten field trips to Jaeger's Farm, and Sir Jay's donated $13 from vending machines profits. And at West Vincent, the Sons of American Legion Post number 602 donated $1,000 for use in the school library. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of these donations, contributions, and gifts?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos, a second.
Second.
Dr. Otoli, any discussion? Once again, I'd like to thank everyone who very generously supported our students and our schools. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 10.1. Agenda item 10, the approval of routine matters consent items 10.1 through, may I have a motion to approve routine matters consent items 10.2 through 10.5?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 11.1, board discussion. Is there anything that the board would like to discuss at this time?
I do think that it's valuable to listen to the feedback from our students on the quality of their meals. We know we've brought this up previously, and I know that there were some definite issues with food sourcing during COVID, and we've had a lot of challenges with the food that's been made available to our school food program. So it might be good for us to get an update on what the current challenges are.
Any other discussion at this time? Okay, moving on to agenda item 12, old business. Mrs. Carmine, is there any old business for us to discuss?
No, there isn't, Madam President.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, new business. May I have a motion to approve personnel matters consent items 13.2 through 13.6?
So moved.
Dr. Melnazak, wait a second.
Second.
Ooh, Dr. Ratoli. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda 14, new business. 14.1, the approval of Bus Driver Appreciation Week resolution. Bus Driver Appreciation Week is February 9th through 23rd, 2024. I'm going to read this because we appreciate our bus drivers immensely. Whereas bus drivers in service of the district demonstrate a commitment to the safe transportation of our most precious possessions, our children, despite often adverse weather and road conditions. Whereas our bus drivers are often placed in extreme stressful situations which require a high degree of physical and psychological stamina and endurance. Whereas our bus drivers had demonstrated a record of safety and efficiency in the performance of their duties. Whereas our bus drivers make a positive contribution to the school climate and self-esteem of students. Now therefore be it resolved that the Owen J. Roberts School District and the Board of School Directors designate February 19 through February 23rd, 2024 as Bus Driver Appreciation Week in recognition of our bus drivers for all their efforts on behalf of the school district and its students. This will be adopted at the meeting of the School Board Directors of the Owen J. Roberts School District on the 22nd day of January 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo, in a second.
Second.
Dr. Malmazak, any discussion? I think I speak for all of us when I say how much we appreciate our bus drivers. As we all know, our school district operated at without a full staffing of our bus drivers for more than a year, and it affected day-to-day life for so many of our students. And that we have a fully staffed staff of bus drivers who are committed to being safe drivers and transporting, as our resolution says, our most precious children. I know I extend the board's thanks to them for their continued hard work. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 14.2, the approval to accept the resignation of Daniel Doherty, school board member. May I have a motion to accept the resignation of Daniel Doherty from the Board of School Directors effective January 31, 2024 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo?
Second.
Dr. Malmazak? Any discussion?
I just want to say it was an honor to work with Dan. He'll be missed. He was a great board member, and it was great to have the different perspectives, and he was very good at what he did, and always did a lot of work and research and put a lot of time and effort into the board. So really appreciate his time.
I second April's comments. I found Dan always to be very, very thoughtful and introspective about how important the work was.
And I agree also. I got to know Dan over the last 2 years, and he's been extremely energetic and really looked into various issues. He was the previous vice president, and I can only hope that I can be half as good as him. And I don't think he's watching, but thank you, Dan.
Well, and right, it was clear that he always put the students first. So, when we had discussions and we needed a direction to go in, I think as a board, it was valuable to have his perspective and keep us on that steady path of putting the students first.
And I will agree, as Dr. John said, he was our previous vice president. And so I had the opportunity to serve in board leadership with him. And I am incredibly grateful, as Mrs. Sabo said, for his diligence and work and in research and in making sure that he was able to express that and we could have great discussions with respect and kindness for what we thought was best in the best interest of our students. We wish Mr. Doherty the best of luck on his new endeavors. And I hope he realizes how much our community appreciates what he did and how much he will be missed in this role. In addition, before we will take a vote on this, but we will be posting tomorrow. It will be appear in print tomorrow. Mrs. Carmine, if you could speak to replacing Mr. Doherty.
Sure. The advertisement will be in the newspaper tomorrow, advertising for applications. If anyone is interested in becoming a school board member, those will receive applications through February 1st. And then during the February 5th working session, we plan on the board to interview candidates around 7:30 that evening. And then we have 30 days with which to fill that seat. So the vote will likely occur at the February school board meeting.
Thank you. I encourage all interested parties to apply. And of course, if you'd like any additional information, I know any school board member would be more than happy to speak with you about our experience. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay. 14.3, the approval of the reaffirmation of the local board procedures, board governance standards, and code of conduct. May I have a motion for the approval of the reaffirmation of local board procedures, board governance standards, and code of conduct as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos, Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.4, the approval of working session and school board meeting dates for the 2024-25 school year. May I have a motion for the approval of working session and school board meeting dates for 24-25 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo,
Second.
Dr. Otoli, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.5, the approval of school start time. May I have a motion for the approval of school start time to be effective with the start of the 2024-2025 school year?
So moved.
Mrs. Munson, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Otoli, any discussion? I'd like to. I'm more than happy to start. We've had, as stated here, as stated via in the emails that we received over the last few weeks, as well as personal conversations and those who've reached out to us. This has been a topic of discussion in this district for some time. We have been looking into this. There has been a tremendous amount of research done and taken into consideration. From my point of view, I have listened to all of our feedback. I have read every email that has come in. I have paid attention to every conversation I have had. But it is also overwhelmingly clear to me that research has shown that having a later start time for our secondary teenage students is one of the greatest things we can do to increase their mental health and well-being. We talk about what we want for the safety of our children, what we want for their future. And to me, there are a few things that we can do at once in order to better preserve that for our children. Some things that really stuck out to me were understanding sleep patterns and understanding that staying up a half an hour later and sleeping a half an hour later, while it's the same number of hours, the time that happens in the morning is significantly more restorative for our children. When I look at information, I see that our children, that instances of car accidents, instances of sport injury decrease when our children have the sleep necessary to be successful. I know that this decision and my vote, which is what I'm discussing now, my vote, may cause potential problems for some of our families. But I believe that any potential problem can be solved and we can figure out a way to make that happen. And so it's important that we do what we can, as we said we would when we ran, to do what is in best interest of the children. And I believe that my vote is in the best interest of the children. The second thing that has really played into my thought process over the last few weeks is I have yet to see a school district that made this change and then went back to an earlier time. School districts across the board, when they make this change, have had success and have seen the benefit that they intended. And so I think we can do the same.
And to build on that, I mean, I've been talking to board members in other districts since I considered running for school board and specifically asked them about this topic, particularly in districts that have made a change. And every single school board member said that, yes, they faced a lot of resistance before the change, but overwhelming support after the change. That the current status of the time that our schools start now is already causing issues for people. Because it is the status quo does not mean that it is a better start time. It is simply the one that we are used to right now. And we are used to conquering the challenges of the current start time. So I think that given that perspective, it is worth giving our children the benefit of additional sleep that is recommended by multiple health organizations. And it is in our best interest to do what is going to set up our students for success.
Please, The time for public comment is over. There's a follow-up public comment at the end of the meeting. I'd ask the public not to disrupt the board discussion.
Any additional board discussion at this time?
Yeah, I'd add that, I think the district has absolutely done the research, has the science that supports it, has made countless presentations and provided great amounts of information. I'm trusting that in the coming months, you're going to work at some of the issues that parents have brought up regarding bus drop-off, creative before and after care, sports schedules, to assist the community around the practical issues they raise that don't necessarily fall under the research and science that was done. So again, support with the trust that there's more nitty-gritty work to be done around the questions that have been brought to us over the last few weeks.
I would like to piggyback on what Nick said. I've read significant amounts of research on this, and I can't say that I've had the same opinion when I first started on the board and this came up to now. One of the things that sticks out to me the most is the decrease in car accidents among 16 to 18-year-olds when this is initiated. And I think it's a concern for a lot of parents. It's one of parents' worst nightmares is getting a phone call like that. Looking at student athletes, there are multiple districts that when they moved to this, not only had incredible years following in regards to state championships and such, also had significant decrease in concussions and injuries. And I don't want to discount the challenges that families are going to go through. I have elementary school students, and I also will have another one going to elementary school. So I would encourage our administration, whatever vote occurs tonight, to really do their due diligence. And like I said in the working session, Phoenixville did a lot of work for after school jobs, for before school care, for after school care, to find out what our families needed the most and how they could help and best support. And I think that that would be the number one role from moving forward from here.
Any additional discussion?
I just want to agree with everyone who spoke before me. When my kid went from middle school to high school, there was such a dramatic change. And I tried to get him to go to sleep earlier and it never worked. And then reading the research over the last couple of years, it's evident that, you know, the clock has changed and they just can't, you know, adjust to that different time. So I know it's going to bring difficulties to a lot of people, and hopefully it will be some difficulties, less difficulties to others. But in the end, I think this is best for our kids.
I think it's tough. I think as parents, we sacrifice a lot for our kids, and you know, daily we make decisions about what's best for our family and what's best for our kids and what's best for ourselves. And they're hard. Those decisions are very hard sometimes. And I think this is a tough one. I think there's a lot of gravity to this. I think the scientific research is clear. I think that we have a lot of time. We have 9 months to implement this. And I don't think all challenges will be able to be solved in 9 months, but I think we can do some additional work to smooth some of those wrinkles. And I think it's going to hit different families and different individuals differently. So some are going to be impacted by this very positively, and some are going to be impacted negatively, and everything in between. And so I think, at this moment, I think what's driving me is we need to do what's best for our kids. And so I think we need to, vote our conscience on that.
Okay. If there is not any other discussion, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.6, the approval of full-day kindergarten. May I have a motion for the approval of full-day kindergarten, for the full-day kindergarten recommendation to be effective in the 2025-2026 school year?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo, is there a second? Dr. Ritoli. Oh, Mrs. Chabelle Fuller. Is there any discussion?
I do think there is still a lot of planning that needs to go into full day kindergarten, as has been commented. But it does seem like to align with the expectations of parents, and the area that we're in, the full day kindergarten does seem to be what is required over the next few years. So if we can make this happen on the timeline that's been proposed by administration, to me, it seems like a worthwhile endeavor.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson.
Yeah, I'm in favor of full day kindergarten, but having said that, there's still a lot of questions that I don't think that we've answered fully. And we've had dialogue with the administration, and I think we need to keep doing that. But we have over a year and a half to get that, set down nicely. And it's, again, it's pretty evident that this would be a better thing for most our kids. Questions like, can some parents opt out? Those kind of questions we need to really delve into and get better answers.
I will say from my perspective that, this wasn't a really long consideration and thought process for me. I am a parent who would not have sought out a full day kindergarten program for my kids, for 2/3 of my kids, let's put it that way. Because I know that that would have been a struggle from not having been in a full day preschool program. But again, this isn't about just those who have my experience and with my kids. And I recognize that a program like this will do more for children who don't have access to the same programming that my kids did through preschool. And so I know that there is an entire segment of our population who will benefit exponentially from having more time in the classroom, from having not having to worry about midday transportation, from having access, especially for our children with special needs, having access to support services in the building during a full day program that they don't have during a half day program. And it's keeping those kids in mind that has really formed my response on this particular question.
I think this is a tough one for me too, for similar reasons. My family did not wish to have a full day kindergarten, and we came out of a community that was really built on kids, learning from play and this type of procedure, or what's the word? No, the school thing. No, can't think of it. I want to say paradigm, but that's not what it is. What's the? Oh, I'll think about it. I'll email you. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Thanks. okay, so, given that, I think that a full day kindergarten for a lot of families, would be a win. And I don't want to restrict or not allow, some kids to have, as much education or support as they need. And I think this would be helpful to a lot of families. Now, I think we did have some correspondence, Dr. Soder, regarding the option for a full day kindergarten. If a family wanted to do a half day and we vote for a full day, is that an option? Can you speak to that? We have her speak to that?
Our recommendation would be for all students to have full day, but if a family wanted a half day option, that's something that they could work out with the principal. So we have had that when we had full day previously. Our recommendation is for all students to have access to that, but if a family needed it, they would work with the principal.
Okay, so I think given that that option is available and can be exercised without too much hassle, I think that it's probably a good thing to move forward with.
I would just add that since kindergarten is not a requirement in Pennsylvania, I think that children would greatly benefit from what the offering is of a full day. I guess two concerns that we heard repeatedly to allay is first, the option of halftime. If I don't want my child in a full day, is that child going to be significantly, will that be significantly detrimental to that child moving forward? The other is that I hope we don't look at it, we don't forget the age of these children, and that we don't just see it as an opportunity of doubling academics, that we really have a sense of what we mean by recreational time, structured play, soft skills. Those are some of the things I'd like to see more of moving forward.
And I know we have two of our principals in the building, and I think they have heard that clearly from us as we've talked about this, that this is not an opportunity to double the academia, that, not double time in a chair. It's about learning and growing in an age-appropriate environment. The other thing, as I touched a little bit on the idea of our special needs students getting access to programming there, the hope is down the line that a kindergarten program of this time would reduce the number of services required as time goes on for a number of these students, that we would be able to affect change with kids at an earlier age and reduce the amount of services they need as time goes on. And so I think it's a really important idea as we look at the numbers, knowing that we are having more and more children referred out of intermediate unit preschools and out of services in the preschool age into our kindergarten, that we do have more needs coming in. And if we have the time to spend with children and those needs, it's a good thing in my book.
I hope you don't mind. I just want to clarify with what you were saying. I think I like what you're saying. I think I would agree more with the statement if it was, we have students that come in at different levels and different abilities, not just students with special education, who may struggle later and still require assistance in reading, writing, and math, that hopefully down the line we would see need less assistance. Students in special education, if they have an IEP, will continue to see the services they need, maybe not as intense if we were able to reach certain standards, but I just wanted to, if that's okay.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are on agenda item 14.7, the ratification approval of conference attendance. May I have a motion for the ratification and approval of conference attendance as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo?
Second.
Dr. Melnazak, any discussion? Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Now the motion passes. 14.8, the approval of out-of-state overnight student trips. May I have a motion for the approval of out-of-state overnight student trips as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo?
Second.
Mr. Harmonos? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.9, the approval of policies for second reading. May I have a motion for the approval of policies for the second reading as presented? That's policy 006, policy 143, policy 216.1, and policy 251.
So moved.
Mrs. Munson,
Second.
Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.10, the approval of a waiver agreement. May I have a motion for the approval of a waiver agreement as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo? Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.12, the approval of a settlement agreement and a release. May I have a motion for the approval? Sorry, I dropped 14.11, thank you. 14.11, the approval of tuition waiver. May I have a motion for the approval of a tuition waiver for senior student A per policy 202 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Munson?
Second.
Mrs. Sabo, do I have, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.12, the approval of settlement agreement and release. May I have a motion for the approval of a settlement agreement and released as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos,
Second.
Dr. Melnazak, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.13, the approval of REA Memorandum of Understanding. May I have a motion for the approval of the REA Memorandum of Understanding as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Melnazak, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ratoli, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.14, the approval of the MOU. May I have a motion for the approval of an MOU with Compass Mark as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Melnazak, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.15, the approval of transfer of accounts. May I have a motion for the approval of transfer of accounts recommended by the school district's auditor to close the general fund, capital reserve fund, capital projects fund, and the internal service fund for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023 as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos,
Second.
Dr. Malnazak, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.16, the approval of student activity club advisors and student officers. May I have a motion for the approval of student activity club advisors and student officers in accordance with the provisions of Section 511 of the Pennsylvania School Code for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Melnazak and Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.17, the award of bid for network switching equipment through federal E-rate program. May I have a motion for the award of bid for network switching equipment through federal E-rate program in the amount of $79,981.65 as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Munson,
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.18, award of bid for wireless equipment through federal E-rate program. May I have a motion for the award of bid for wireless equipment through federal E-rate program in the amount of $24,790.42 as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Melmezak? Second. Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 14.19, award of bid for cabling through federal E-rate program. May I have a motion for the award of bid for cabling through federal E-rate program in the amount of $16,070.10?
So moved.
Dr. Melmezak?
Second.
Mrs. Munson? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 14.20, the approval ratification of professional services agreement maintenance agreements. May I have a motion for the approval ratification of professional services agreement and maintenance agreements as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harmonos and Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 15, public comment. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate your name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. Also, if you have a question for the school board, please email all school board directors at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net and you will receive a written response. For anyone online who would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
I'm sorry, but, under both the sunshine law and board policy, only residents and taxpayers are eligible to make public comment. I'm not aware of that.
Two of my big issues when I was running and my plans, one was safety and security for the students. The other one is post-graduation career opportunities for the kids to see. I've had some time to speak to Lou Pryor as a union member. We see things a lot alike. As far as he's trying to get the RCO, responsible contractor ordinance, through. I see no reason why, as a school district and a parent, why we wouldn't take this serious. I don't know how the schedule went with the recent upgrades that we've did. I do know that this didn't seem like it opened on time, but maybe it was scheduled that way. But the RCO, if you guys could take a chance, if you have ever looked at it before or not, it's pretty much trying to get local residents, union members, or not necessarily even union. It just brings quality contractors to the table to bid on these jobs. And that we know where the jobs will be quality, and they'll be done by not necessarily people in the right here, but they'll be in the general area where the money is staying in the community, which is important. So I've worked on jobs where there's people from Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and that's our money going elsewhere. So let's keep it. Let's keep it here. And something else, when we work with the unions like that, and I had already spoken to them, we have gone to building trades meetings, and we were starting to line up things. We're having career days again. I'd recently had, and I've had other high school kids working in my house, laboring for me. So I don't want to dig all the time, so I'll have them help me. And It's an eye opener for them. Just a few weeks ago, I was digging the basement of my barn out. I had a 2023 graduate and a 2000 upcoming graduate. There we are, picks and shovels, wheelbarrows, all of us. And at one point I said, the one kid's in college now at Westchester, the other one's going to college. I said, did you guys ever look at opportunities outside of college? And they're like, oh no, it's just kind of what we figured. So I'm going to give you a perfect example. I wasn't telling them what I make. I said, Local 98, a union electrician, 5-year apprenticeship program. I said, they get paid the whole time at different rates as they go through their process. But after 5 years, I believe right now it's $68 an hour, plus your pension, plus your annuity, health benefits, and they both stopped. They're like, how much is that? I said, it's over $140,000 a year. If you have a good work ethic, you work every day. It's possible. And now we have the union trades coming to us, and we can work as a team, the union and the school district. You start getting jobs, bringing them in, there's possibilities for future apprentices. And that I actually had to tell the kids, though, is they could keep digging, because they were just looking at each other, then like just mesmerized by no debt and the ability to make a decent, never going to be rich doing it, but it's a decent pay. And I hope you guys would let Lou take a few minutes and explain what he has to offer, because it's more than just, there's many variables in it that really can help the community. So if you could, Brian, could you give him 2 minutes?
It's not my call, and I think the board can take that under deliberation and possibly give, provide an opportunity at a later date. But oops, I defer to.
The thing is, he's here right now. I mean,
I understand that. Your 3 minutes has gone through. Thank you. Yep.
Could the gentleman email us though?
Yeah,
Anybody?
I'm, this isn't a time for discussion. Give me a minute till we get to that part of the meeting. Is that okay? Thank you.
Hi, Tony Cameron, South Coventry Township. There are DUI and disorderly conduct charges brought against 2 of our school board members. I request this be an agreed item or an agenda item at the working session on February 3rd, so that we could discuss this more and the community can understand how we're looking at this. As Rita stated earlier tonight, your job is to do what is in the best interest of the children. These individuals are making decisions for our children. Being able to make the right decisions for our children starts with being able to make the right decisions for themselves. I trust that these charges will be taken seriously. Thank you.
iPad 3, if you can unmute, and please state your full name and township of residence.
Good evening, Samantha Horoski, Warwick Township. As you have heard from so much of this public this evening, you have just voted a tremendous financial burden on so many of our families with your start time agenda, let alone the lack of consideration of retaining your staff. I ask that this board consider pause, and I petition that this vote be placed on the April 23rd Pennsylvania primary ballot. Please consider allowing the taxpayers and the parents of this district to have the final say. You should trust our opinions, and I ask that you offer this community diplomacy. Thank you.
That's fine.
Taylor Ott, North Coventry Township. The only other school board meeting I ever went to was in high school when Dr. Myra Forrest got fired without really anyone knowing. It was just kind of abrupt. And I watched, I think, almost every single high school student that could make it and almost every single teacher that wanted to be there say that that was a bad decision and that the school board made a bad decision. And I watched the school board hear all those people, some people cry, like they cared so much and they didn't know why. And the school board just stared at everyone and didn't say anything and then just kept going on with what they wanted to do. And as a student, that made me lose faith in the school board. So like I said, this is only the second other time I've ever come to a school board meeting, and I've listened to parents say, please don't do this. Please don't, like this, it puts a financial burden on us. Time, it doesn't work. Our kids with their schedules, because I forgot to mention my daughter does dance. That's why I have an hour and a half. And it didn't even seem like, it seemed like the thought was already, like you knew what you were already doing, rather than listening to people talk and listening to people's lives. And I feel like people's lives matter. And I know that you say that kids matter and you're thinking of kids. And I don't know what to tell my kids when I walk home and say, because they know mommy's opinion. And when I say, no, I'm sorry, everyone that I heard, well, minus a few, said, please no. And the school board just looked at us and said, doesn't matter what you think. It just matters what we want to do and what we feel is right. And I know as a parent, you have to say that to your kids sometimes, but usually it's for the right reasons. And I don't see any right reasons. Not saying that it doesn't matter, but I've also talked to my pediatrician many times. I am a psychology major, specialized in child development. And I know that a lot of kids lose sleep because they're just staring at a phone until 1 a.m. on video games, and parents are failing their kids. So I understand wanting to help those kids and be there for those kids. Now, just real quick, if you're not gonna take people's opinions, where do I go to say, like, please, yes, if there's an option for half-day kindergarten? I know it was mentioned, the principal, but like that is something I seriously would be so grateful for, as an option, and not just a, oh, we'll talk about it, but like an option for stay-at-home moms that want to give their kid the play that they can, the stuff. And then for, like I said, losing 20 minutes really does impact my daughter. Does that mean less homework for her? So that she doesn't have to sit there and just grind for a very long time and she then won't lose sleep? Is that then something we decrease homework time for these kids that homework takes a long time for? I guess talk to the teacher, but then anyway, thank you very much.
Hello, Cheryl Herzog, Warwick Township again. Thank you. Thank you for making the decision for the children. I'm delighted, but I'm also sad for all those people who have, will be having problems. I empathize with everyone, and I appreciate that you took the time to, every one of you in your discussion mentioned the research. The research is unwavering. It is solid. It has been going on since the 1990s. We know that the majority of teens, when they hit adolescence, have a circadian rhythm shift. We know that their melatonin, the sleep hormone that our bodies pump out, that we adults and younger children have at certain times and nights, so that we go to bed at when everybody thinks is a reasonable time, that teenagers' melatonin, sleep hormone, does not even start being created by their body until later, 1.5 to 2 hours later. That's why they can't get to sleep. The phones are secondary. Everything else is secondary to that, and that is part of the science that is known. Their melatonin is still circulating through their body. It's still being produced in their body in the early hours of the morning, when some of us adults are ready to get up. Younger children are ready to get up. Teenagers are in one of their deeper sleep cycles. They are not ready to get up. It is torture to them. Imagine having to get up at 3 a.m. All of us having to get up at 3 a.m. every day. Maybe some of you do, but I think most don't. That's what we're doing to our kids. It's chronic sleep deprivation. It's a horrible situation that affects every single aspect of their lives: mental, physical, socio-emotional, risky behavior, everything. Depression and anxiety are increased because of all this. People that have specific problems right now with our elementary students, I want you to know that your children are going to grow up and be those sleep deprived teenagers too. So I appreciate that every one of you studied this and looked at it carefully and understood that health, well-being of our teens is the most important thing. And what they have so much pressure in every way. I mean, look at the academic pressure that they have. They will do so much better with more sleep, with the quality of sleep, with the timing of sleep. that this will offer them. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Tasha Morris, South Coventry. I just wanted to say that I am disappointed with your vote for the school start times. I mean, I figured that you would pass it because I figured you already had an agenda. What I am really saddened about is your response or your lack of response to the community's concerns. I know that you are aware of our concerns because of everyone that just got up here and spoke, but I didn't hear one solution, one suggestion for a solution. So that's something that you really need to work on. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Pennypacker, North Coventry Township. I just want to walk you through a day of my daughter who's in first grade. She wakes up at 6 o'clock. We have to take her to ACP at 7 o'clock in the morning because we have to utilize that morning care. She goes to school until 3:15. She does not get off the bus until 4:12. 4:12, we get done. We come home, we do homework, we eat dinner, she off the gymnastics she goes. So with the change, my question is, like this lady just said, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, what have you done or suggested for changes for people like us? I watched this lady back here crying, bawling her eyes out because of your decision. And the fact that you guys can sit here and look us in the eyes and just cold-hearted, agenda spoken with no solutions to anybody who works for a living. It's sickening. It's embarrassing. You work for us. I don't care about the data. The data. Oh, I got the data. There was data about COVID-19, the mask work, the shots work. I get it. There's data on everything. The fact that you people cannot take what's best for the community. I guarantee we take a vote right now. Who's in favor of it? Raise your hand. You two? That's it. Who's not in favor for it? Wow. It does.
Please
And it's a
direct your
disservice.
comments to us.
It's a disservice that you have not done your due diligence. Do a poll. What's the poll data from before? Was it favor? Dr. Stout?
This is not a time for questions. and
Well, I'm asking.
It's your
And the
opportunity
fact
to
that you
provide
people can sit here in front of us and not do your due diligence is a disservice to the community.
Kevin Burbosh, North Coventry. I'm just going to be brief. This is why we have elections, and this is why people need to participate in elections. This is what we have as a base to that. People on the line.
Sir, I'd ask you to maintain order.
Okay. Go.
Dana, if you can state your full name and township of residence, please.
Dana Chaffone, East Vincent Township. I wanted to speak about the full-day kindergarten. I truly hope that you will provide an option. I know that that was discussed during the working session, and unfortunately, it took a school board member during the discussion asking the question to actually hear a response that it sounds like it would be an opportunity. I understand that Downingtown actually does placement testing in the spring that would drive, decisions around students that would be required to go full day. I don't know if you've looked into that, but I feel like that's, again, along the lines of what others are saying here, trying to come with solutions and options and, finding a way to meet the needs of the community and the desires of the community. I also, on the topic of full day kindergarten, just have to ask a question, which comes back to, when we make changes like this and we look at what the budget impact is, we see dollars, right? We see dollars and cents what we don't see is this a net add to our budget, or is this an addition by subtraction? And I say that because I heard comments about, this is going to help those kids that need that extra support, and hopefully down the line, that lessens their needs, for, let's say, special education or anything along those lines. We actually reduced the budget for special education this year. I'm going to say on the IEP side, because that's what affects me and that's what I was looking at. And it was the reason given for that was that we had more children or students pursuing the technical school, and therefore they wouldn't need, I guess, the extent of those services. So, I see us adding to our budget with full day kindergarten, but again, I don't know where is that coming from. So I think as we bring these initiatives forward, there's a lack of transparency around how is this going to impact the budget, and people should understand that. The same thing happened with the paraprofessionals where it wasn't indicated and now it is. So the transparency there really is missing, I feel like, and I'd like to know how this is going to impact. Where is the funding going to come from? And I absolutely feel that there should be a way to find an option for parents that want to not have their child in full day kindergarten. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This meeting, oh, I'm sorry. Nope, we're going. Okay.
I just wanted to end on a positive note. I sent you guys an email on Monday, January 29th, and on Tuesday, January 30th, it is open to the public. There are 18 students that have stuck with the mock trial team since the beginning of the year. So we are competing at the Chester County Courthouse, and it's in person. It is not live streamed. It's not on Zoom. If you have never seen this, it is a fascinating thing to watch. High school kids that are better lawyers than lawyers themselves that are helping them. So I encourage all of you guys to come out and just don't wear anything that identifies as O and J. Competition is cutthroat and you're not allowed to identify your school when you're in there. So I encourage you guys to come out and watch. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. McCreary. Go ahead.
How you doing? Drew Holloway, North Coventry Township. Just relating on the RCO, I do have a hard copy. If you board members would be interested, I can hand them out. Would you guys be? Okay, we'll do. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 16, board discussion, follow-up and request for information. That was one of my requests for information as we're moving forward. So thank you for sharing that documentation. And I know that you have come to the board before, so I appreciate that. Is there any additional discussion?
Can I make a comment? Okay. I just want to make a comment because I love what Rick was up here saying, and I apologize, I don't remember your name. But I thought it was really great this year, and I think Mr. Benman could talk more on this. We did have a job fair this year, and I hope you were a part of it. If not, I hope you can get involved for next year. I think it was a really great thing that was set up for our students this year so they can learn more about the trade.
Sorry, I'm gonna say no because we have moved on from that agenda item.
Well, and right, I had, I guess, confusion before when there was talk of the RCO because it was referring to municipality, and we're not a municipality, we're a school district. So I wasn't even sure that it applied to us. So I guess if the clarification is in that documentation, then that will help me understand it better.
So I think there's opportunity for us to learn more on the topic, and we're gonna.
Yeah, I would say thank you to the poor guy who drove up here and couldn't talk. We have the rules, but we will look at it very seriously. My dad was union electrician, so okay, my dad was an electrician, and I went the other way, but I appreciate the trades very, very much.
Okay, if there is no other additional discussion or follow-up, I am adjourning this evening's meeting. Thank you.